Hello, this is Tessa Shepperson, and today I'm interviewing Giles Peaker. Giles is a solicitor and partner at Anthony Gold and the creator of the marvellous Nearly Legal blog. Giles, I can remember when you set up Nearly Legal. It was just a couple of months after I set up my blog. What were your reasons for starting a blog at that time?
At the time I was a paralegal and just finding my way into practice, let alone housing law, and it was originally just somewhere to put things that interested me. Anonymous, because as you'll remember at that time there were very few law blogs around and nobody quite knew how people would react to them. But originally it was just somewhere to put reflections on legal practice.
Yes, that was why I did mine. At that time, as you said, you were a trainee, and now you're a partner at Anthony Gold. Do you think the blog's helped you on that journey?
Yes, it has. I think in a couple of ways. The first is it's a continual education and my memory store.
Yes, yes.
For practice, it saves me actually having to remember most of the cases as long as I remember that I wrote about it.
You go look at it.
Yeah. But I think certainly once I came out, as it were, which I think was about 2008, by which time the blog was already, I think, pretty well regarded. It certainly helped to be known as being behind the blog, yes.
Yes, so the blog's very different now to what it was in 2006. How has it changed over time?
There's an awful lot more of it.
Yes.
I think there's about 1,500 case reports in there now, but I think it's become more and more increasingly focused on doing a job.
Yes. So it's a case report.
Primarily, yeah, and updates on statute and so on. I think it's become much more focused on that. It's been other bits added. I think the whole sort of bedroom tax thing.
Yes.
Which nobody else was doing.
Yes.
And somehow, almost accidentally, I ended up sort of collecting them and reporting on the bedroom tax decisions, and that became a whole sort of separate set and a whole new audience as well. As to be said, a lot of people doing their own tribunals. And of course, as you know, there's it started with just me, but now there's quite a lot of other people writing as well.
Yes, I mean, I remember at one stage you were thinking about closing the blog because it was getting a bit much.
Yes.
Can you discuss what happened then and how you moved to the current situation where you've got several writers on the blog?
Yes, well, I was just running out of time. I think it was shortly before I qualified. Yes, it must have been shortly before I qualified. I was just running out of time to do it. So literally I put a call out on the blog saying, does anybody else want to write for it? And lo and behold, another 4 or 5 people, solicitors and barristers, came forward, and most of them are still writing for it. So at that point, yes, it became thankfully became a team effort.
That was excellent. So we've been talking about what do you think is the main purpose of the blog? Who are its readers? And is it true you've been cited in court cases as an authority?
Right. Well, the purpose of the blog, I think, is now, as I said, very much focused on being a place for information and discussion of housing law, and specifically case law and case reports, updated statute. The audience, well, frankly, continually surprises me. When you find out who's reading, it's a constant surprise. In my less modest moments, I say everybody reads it, or at least virtually everybody involved in the housing sector. We have local.
What are the stats then?
We're currently getting about 45,000 views a month, which, given that the housing law world is not a large
That's not
world,
bad, yeah.
And I know who email updates are going out to, and it's everybody from central government to local authorities, housing associations, obviously solicitors and barristers, homeless officers. I mean,
Judges.
A few.
That's
yes,
nice. That's nice.
A few on the mailing list. There are rumours. And they're mostly county court, but there are rumours that sometimes High Court judges come to check their write-ups, apparently. But yes, the citation in court, that has happened.
Uh-huh.
I pity the people who did it.
Nonsense.
Well, we're not an authority, and we're not a record, but there was a point after a very significant homeless judgment came out back in 2010, something like that. No, sorry, it wasn't the homeless judgment. It was Pinnock. It was the great proportionality decisions, and we wrote up the report from a judgment before the judgment actually appeared on Bailey.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, as people were taking the printout of our report into court, I'm not sure how well that went, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, no, true.
It reminds me very much of how the original case reporting started, because often they were amateur people who were just writing up reports, and then they morphed into the traditional case reports that we have. So I mean, it's a similar sort of thing, isn't it?
Yes, although thankfully we have Bailey and so on to actually rely on for the judgments, but in the sense of distilling the judgments and offering comment on them, very, very similar. And I think, I mean, as you know, with Landlord Law Blog, I think the freedom to be able to comment like that easily
wonderful.
It's
wonderful. Yes, the internet is marvellous. You have several writers. How do you decide amongst yourselves what to write?
Well, technically, I'm editor-in-chief. They've got an email circle, and usually it's just they get sent round and people volunteer. If people don't volunteer,
you don't.
Or I suggest that somebody volunteers, one of the two. But normally it's not a problem. We have got a bit of a backlog at the moment, but we're working through it.
So do you try and report on all the cases that come out in housing law? And
we pride ourselves on having every significant judgment since 2008, and also breaking news of particularly county court judgments that aren't binding but are of interest, tenancy deposit ones.
Absolutely,
and people send us those.
Yeah, that's good.
So I think, okay, we are a little bit behind. There's about 5 cases still to do, but otherwise, I think we pride ourselves on our completeness.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of cases in the social housing sector, awful lot of cases, so it must take some keeping up with it all.
It does, yes.
Yes. I mean, it looks from the blog as if you probably do the majority of the writing, is that right? How do you find the time?
I probably do just over half, I suppose, or possibly slightly more. How I find the time is I don't know, bluntly. I suspect my family aren't pleased, but it is a struggle sometimes. But I suppose we end up with a strange sense of duty because there's so many people reading the thing now that you actually got to get it done. But,
I write a post every morning. I do. It's the first thing. It's part of my morning routine. I make the blog post live. But mine's a different sort of blog from yours. So.
Yeah, no, I'd like to do that, but I don't mind a spell of 3 or 4 days without something, but then they tend to come in thick and fast.
Yes.
So
a lot of it. Are there any episodes on the blog or posts on the blog or things that you're particularly proud of? I love the one, Oh Cluck, that's my favourite. That's my absolute favourite on the blog.
Unfortunately, some people still believe that I am traumatically scarred by chickens, but there's a couple like that. I was rather fond of the Northumbrian ASBO breach for disturbing the neighbours in peculiar ways.
Yes.
Which was entertaining as right, or indeed the hot tub, noisy hot tub, noise nuisance case. I think in terms of legal commentary, I'm particularly proud of our group posts around the Pinnock proportionality Article 8 decisions, which actually pulled together virtually everybody who was writing for the blog at that time in a sort of epic comment on this incredibly important case. And I think in terms of legal writing, that was probably one of our finest.
Okay. Generally, as you've been writing about housing law for such a long time, have you noticed any sort of themes developing? And how do you think things are going? Do you have any predictions for the way housing law is going? I mean, you must get a sense of...
Yes. I think it's gone in 2 directions. I think in terms of social housing, it's become sort of more and more settled. The cases tend to be a little bit around the edges. Some exceptions, the recent Johnson-Hotak-Kanu Supreme Court case on homelessness being a big one. But for social housing law, it tends to be sort of, technical bits around the edges. Principles are pretty much settled. A lot of the action, I suppose in legal terms, seems to have moved to the private sector, particularly with the deposit.
Absolutely, yes.
Matters, which has been a roller coaster of a saga.
Given me a lot to write about.
Yeah, no, quite, and indeed us. And one suspects, given what seems to be coming down the line,
yes,
that there's going to be an awful lot more. Immigration, the further rogue landlord provisions, although it now looks like a rogue landlord is going to be someone who doesn't evict a tenant without notice.
Well, yeah. That's an unusual...
yeah.
Who would have thought?
Quite, indeed. But it looks like there's going to be some fairly fundamental rewriting of private sector housing law going on.
Interesting times.
Yeah, very.
So, just to wrap up, what do you think is the future of the blog? Do you think it's going to be more of the same, or do you have any other plans for developing it?
I keep toying with things. Time is the big problem.
Yes.
I would like to... I tried to turn our archives into e-books, which has sort of worked up to a point, but again, that needs constant topping up. I'm not sure I've got the time. I'd like to refine that if possible. We're toying with video. Not done it yet, but toying with video. And I do think we've got such a wealth of material there that there's actually got to be other ways to use that or to make it useful for people.
And there probably is maybe a printed book in there.
Maybe, although of course a lot of it's constantly superseded, so a lot of the early material's out of date, and some of it isn't. But, possibly. So far nobody's approached us with large sums of money, so...
Oh, shame. Well, maybe this is your chance if you're a publisher. Okay, well, thank you very much for giving up your time, Giles. And you will find the Nearly Legal blog at www.nearlylegal.co.uk.
.nearlylegal.co.uk.
Thank you very much.